Welcome. This is the voice of Oculvra. We invite you with us on this journey to another world. So please, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and relax. The heat hit the moment I stepped out of the truck, that familiar dry weight pressing against my skin, like an old friend who never learned personal space. Saqqara had that effect on me. No matter how many times I came here, the desert always felt alive. I adjusted my hat and took a slow look around. The step pyramid of Damosur loomed in the distance, softened by haze, timeless and patient. Saqqara wasn't just a sight to me. It was a conversation stretching across millennia. Every grain of sand felt like it had something to say, if you listened long enough. This place never gets old, I said, more to myself than anyone else. Katie laughed as she swung her pack down from her shoulder. You say that every time, Franklin. And every time I mean it, I replied, smiling. Katie was brilliant. There was no other word for it. Barely in her 30s and already responsible for discoveries most archaeologists only dreamed of, she had that rare mix of academic rigor and instinct, the kind you couldn't teach. Marcus emerged from the other side of the truck, wrestling with a crate of equipment that was clearly heavier than he'd expected. He caught me watching and straightened up quickly, trying to play it off. "I've got it," he said, a little too fast. "I'm sure you do," I said gently, stepping in to help anyway. Marcus was all nerves and ambition, still shaping himself into the scholar he wanted to be. He reminded me of myself at that age, hungry, uncertain, desperate to prove that my love for history wasn't just a hobby or an escape. We spent the afternoon setting up camp. Tents went up first, then the equipment station, then the shade canopy that would become our sanctuary once the sun decided we'd had enough. As we worked, conversation flowed easily. Stories of digs gone wrong, unexpected finds, the kind of gallows humor only archaeologists really understood. Katie told us about a burial shaft she'd uncovered years back, how everyone assumed it was looted until she noticed a subtle anomaly in the wall texture. Turned out the real chamber was hidden behind it, she said, eyes bright even now at the memory, completely untouched. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. At one point, Marcus gestured out toward the dunes. "Hard to believe we got here first." "It is," I said. "Universities would have buried this site in paperwork for years." Katie nodded. That's the advantage of being small and well-funded. Less bureaucracy, more action. I just hope their intelligence is good, and there is actually a structure beneath this sand. I didn't say it out loud, but I felt grateful. Grateful to still be doing this at my age. Grateful to be standing on land that had drawn thinkers and seekers for thousands of years. Pythagoras had walked Egypt searching for knowledge once. Mystery schools had flourished here. Who was I to think all the secrets were already gone? As the sun dipped low, we walked the perimeter of the site together, surveying the ground. Subtle rises beneath the sand, unnatural symmetry, stone fragments that didn't belong on the surface. Katie crouched near one patch, brushing sand aside with her fingers. This alignment doesn't feel random. "No," I agreed. "Neither does that." I pointed toward a slight depression farther out, barely visible unless you knew what to look for. Marcus followed my gaze. eyes narrowing as understanding crept in. That night, we sat around the fire, the desert cooling quickly now that the sun was gone. Above us, the stars exploded into view. No light pollution, no modern interference, just the cosmos in its raw, overwhelming beauty. I leaned back, letting the silence settle. There was something about Saqqara at night. The air felt charged, as if the boundary between past and present thinned when no one was looking. Marcus broke the quiet. "Do you ever think they knew more than we give them credit for?" "All the time," I said. Katie stared up at the sky. "Sometimes I think we're not discovering things. We're being allowed to find them." The fire crackled. The stars burned on. And somewhere beneath our feet, buried under centuries of sand and silence, something waited. The morning came quietly, the way it only does in the desert. No alarm clocks, no traffic, just pale light creeping over sand and stone, and the distant sound of wind brushing against history. I woke before the others, as I usually did, and sat for a moment outside my tent with a tin cup of coffee warming my hands. We ate quickly. Flatbread, dates, strong coffee. Marcus was unusually quiet, running through notes on his tablet while Katie teased him about working before sunrise. I slung my pack over my shoulder and stepped onto the site, and immediately felt it. An odd feeling of anticipation, similar to when you get déjà vu, like the moment before a memory snaps into focus. Except there was no memory attached. I took another step. The sensation followed. I stopped and looked down at the sand. It was perfectly still and ordinary. "Franklin," Katie called. "You coming?" "Yes," I said, though my voice sounded distant even to me. As I walked, the feeling grew stronger. The sand seemed to tremble underfoot, subtle enough that I questioned whether it was real at all. I opened my mouth to say something to Katie, about the sensation, about how wrong it felt, but the words stalled halfway out. I closed my mouth. "You're tired," I told myself. By mid-morning, the heat had settled in properly. We worked in sections, methodical and careful. Katie uncovered a pair of small bowls, beautifully preserved, their rims etched with simple geometric patterns. Marcus found a cluster of buried vases, likely ceremonial, intact but unremarkable. No walls, no foundations, no indication of a structure like our institution had assured us. As the hours dragged on, doubt crept in. By late afternoon, I wiped sweat from my brow and stared out across the site. Nothing about the layout suggested a tomb. "Maybe the intel was bad," Marcus said, breaking the silence. He lowered himself onto a crate, exhaustion finally winning. I agreed, though something about saying it felt like a lie. The sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched. I was about to suggest we wrap up for the day when Marcus shouted. Not a word, a sound, raw, sharp, and panicked. I snapped my head around. Marcus was no longer sitting. He was sinking. The sand around him moved like water, collapsing inward as his legs vanished beneath the surface. He clawed at the ground, eyes wide with terror. "Franklin!" he screamed. I ran over to help as quickly as possible, tripping over the sand as I did. Katie was already moving, shouting his name as we dropped to our knees and grabbed his arms. The sand rushed faster now, pouring down around his torso, slamming into his face and chest, as if pulled by something below. "Hold on," Katie yelled. "Don't let go." We pulled with everything we had, muscles burning, boots sliding forward, as the ground betrayed us. Marcus screamed again, coughing as sand filled his mouth. "It's pulling me," he choked. "Something's pulling." Then he was gone. The sand collapsed inward with a dull, final sound, leaving nothing but a shallow depression where he'd been moments before. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then Katie sobbed, and I snapped back into myself. We started digging, like animals, working past exhaustion, past pain, past the growing horror of what might lie beneath. The sun disappeared completely, leaving us with headlamps and shaking hands. Hours passed. Finally, my shovel struck stone. Katie froze. We cleared the area carefully, revealing the edge of a massive stone shaft, its opening narrow and perfectly cut, descending straight down into darkness, so complete our lights couldn't touch the bottom. Marcus had been sitting directly over it. I leaned over the edge and shouted his name. My voice echoed back, warped and hollow. No answer. So we sprinted back to our site, packed ropes, lights, water, medical supplies. We lowered a ladder into the shaft, its metal clanging softly against ancient stone. I called down again, my voice shaking now. Nothing. Katie met my eyes. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt and tears, but her resolve was iron. "We're not leaving him," she said. "No," I agreed, and then together we descended into the black. The ladder seemed to swallow light. I went first, insisting on it despite Katie's protests. The metal rungs were cold beneath my gloves, and as we descended, the darkness thickened in a way that felt physical, like pushing through deep water. The air moved strangely down there. It wasn't a draft, not exactly, more like a slow breathing exhaling against my skin. Somewhere far below, I thought I heard whispers. "Katie," I said, my voice echoing too loudly. "What did you say?" "I didn't say anything," she replied, unease creeping into her tone. "I thought you did, though." I didn't answer. The ladder grew heavier with each step, as though gravity itself was thickening. And then there was the vibration. It wasn't just in the air. It was inside me, a low, steady hum that settled behind my eyes and in my chest, rattling something deep and ancient. My thoughts felt slightly out of alignment, like a radio tuned just off the proper frequency. The ladder ended abruptly. My foot found nothing but empty air. I froze, heart slamming against my ribs, and aimed my light downward. The beam vanished into nothing, no floor, no walls, just black. "This is it," I said quietly. "We need to go back up, get help, equipment, a rescue team." "Franklin," Katie said, firm now. "Marcus is down here. He could be injured. We don't know how deep this goes, but whatever this place is, it's stable. It hasn't collapsed in thousands of years." She climbed past me, peering down into the void. "If I don't scream up in a few minutes, you climb out and get help. Deal?" Before I could argue, she let go and dropped into the shadows. I waited, counting seconds that stretched unnaturally long. My breath sounded wrong in my ears. The vibration intensified, as if the shaft itself was reacting to her descent. 1 minute, 2. Then her voice rose up from below, clear and shocked and very much alive. "Franklin, jump! You'll land on sand." I closed my eyes and stepped forward. The fall felt endless. The vibration surged, roaring now, and images flooded my mind unbidden. Pyramids rising fully formed from desert sands, stars arranged in unfamiliar constellations, stone temples humming with energy. I heard chanting, languages I did not know but somehow understood. Knowledge pressed against me from all sides, vast and overwhelming. Then I hit the ground. Sand absorbed the impact, soft but real, and I collapsed to my knees, gasping. My head rang, but there was no pain, only a strange clarity, as if a fog I hadn't known was there had lifted. I stood slowly and looked around. My breath caught. We were standing inside a vast chamber that defied every rule I had ever learned. Gold gleamed from walls carved with impossibly intricate hieroglyphs, their lines sharp as if cut yesterday. Statues towered over us, figures both familiar and alien, faces serene, eyes inlaid with stones that seemed to glow faintly. Water flowed through shallow channels in the floor, crystal clear, feeding small pools where fish darted lazily through the light. How can there possibly be life down here? I thought to myself. The ceiling disappeared into darkness far above, supported by massive pillars that seemed to stretch into infinity. I laughed, an unhinged, disbelieving sound, and Katie joined me, the two of us clinging to each other in sheer, hysterical awe. "This is impossible," she kept saying. "Marcus," I shouted, my voice echoing through the chamber. "Marcus." We called his name again and again as we moved forward, afraid and exhilarated in equal measure. Katie stepped ahead, eventually making contact with a hidden stone slab, and the tomb shifted. A deep rumble rolled through the chamber as a hidden mechanism engaged. The floor beneath us parted smoothly, revealing a grand staircase descending into warm, golden light. Torches ignited along the walls one by one, flames springing to life without smoke or sound. We exchanged a glance and descended. The lower chamber was different, vast but sparse. At its center hung an enormous metal structure, suspended impossibly in mid-air. Rings circled a glowing core, tubes spiraling upward into the unseen ceiling, humming with the same vibration I felt in my bones when I dropped from the ladder. This metal structure looked like some kind of machine. A staircase erupted beneath it, about 30 feet beneath the structure, and there, sitting calmly on the bottom of the steps, was Marcus. "Franklin, Katie," he shouted, jumping to his feet. "You guys won't believe this. How did you get down here? Isn't this place amazing?" Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Marcus was uninjured, smiling, alive. "I fell straight through the sand," he explained, eyes shining. "But it didn't hurt. It was like something guided me. And once I got here, I don't feel hungry, or tired, or scared." I realized then that neither did I. Down here, beneath the desert, time itself seemed to have loosened its grip. The machine interrupted our reunion with the vibration that had followed us since the descent. Harmonics stacking on top of one another until the air itself seemed to tear. The circular core at the center of the suspended structure ignited, light folding inward and outward at once, Electricity arced between the rings, illuminating the chamber in violent pulses. Then the air split. A portal opened. Light poured from it in jagged colors that hurt to look at too long. Wind blasted outward, hot and dry, like desert air. Two figures emerged. They were tall, far taller than any human, and they did not step so much as descend, floating forward as if gravity were optional. They wore armor that looked ancient and impossibly advanced at the same time. Layered plates of gold, etched with symbols that moved when I tried to focus on them. Their helmets were animal masks, one with the elongated snout of a jackal, the other with the sharp regal lines of a falcon. Their eyes glowed faintly behind the masks, white-blue like distant stars. They hovered above the platform, and we all stood, frozen. The portal snapped shut behind them with a thunderclap that echoed endlessly through the tomb. The two beings looked around slowly, heads turning in precise, measured movements. Confusion radiated from them, not fear, not aggression, but something like disorientation, as if they had stepped into the wrong room after being gone far too long. Before I could stop myself, I called out, "Hello?" Both heads snapped toward me in unison. The sudden attention hit like a physical force. My chest tightened. Katie inhaled sharply beside me. Marcus took a half step back. The beings remained motionless for a long moment. Then one of them raised a long spear. He made a slow, deliberate gesture toward the platform beneath the machine. An invitation. They wanted us to come up. We climbed the stairs without speaking. Every instinct in my body screamed. When we reached the platform, we dropped to our knees instinctively. Then, the beings began to speak. The sound was layered, voices within voices, tones overlapping in ways that made my head ache. It was not threatening, but it was utterly incomprehensible. Ancient, yes, but not any ancient language I knew. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice trembling despite my effort. "I don't understand. Do you speak English?" They paused, turned toward one another, exchanged a brief series of sounds, short, clipped, and almost questioning. Minutes passed like that. Attempts at speech, gestures, silence. The weight of misunderstanding pressed down on all of us. Then the jackal-masked figure lifted his spear again and pointed, not at us but at the ceiling. Lightning flashed above, illuminating the massive hieroglyphs carved high into the stone. Figures in animal masks, standing beneath stars, flanked by symbols of the sun and sky. Marcus sucked in a breath. "Franklin," he whispered, "that's them." Understanding flickered across their posture, as if recognizing themselves reflected back through time. The falcon-masked being lowered himself to the floor and crossed his legs, settling into a meditative pose. He gestured gently toward me. I hesitated. Then I sat. The vibration changed instantly. It softened, became rhythmic, almost soothing. The air thickened, not with pressure, but with meaning. Something opened inside my mind, slowly, carefully, as if guided by a steady hand. Understanding flooded in, not through English, but some universal language I naturally understood. "We seek Cleopatra," the being said, not aloud, but directly within me. "She sent us to the above." My breath caught. Cleopatra has been dead for over 2,000 years, I replied, my thoughts trembling. Shock rippled through the being's presence like a cracked bell. Impossible, he answered. We departed from our world only 2 sundowns ago. My heart pounded as comprehension dawned. You must have been displaced, I said. Where did you go? Sorrow followed. Deep, ancient, immeasurable. We explored the above, and now return bearing knowledge of stars beyond stars, of worlds shaped by thought, of energies drawn from suns yet unborn, all for her, for Cleopatra. Images poured into me, constellations shifting, vast structures orbiting distant suns, civilizations built from light and sound. This tomb, the being continued, is a vessel powered by the spirit of these sands. Feeling overwhelmed, I jumped into telling my new friend who I was, why I studied the past, how I wanted to share knowledge, to keep stories alive so humanity would remember where it came from. The being listened, then spoke once more. You are a man seeking knowledge of forgotten worlds, but our new truths are reserved for the queen of the immortal kingdom of Egypt. This world was ours, but yours today. The 2 beings rose, their forms glowing brighter. We will return to the above. The being said gently, to explore, to watch, to remember. The machine began to hum again, and somewhere deep in my bones, I knew history had just exhaled. The beings did not rush their departure. After the weight of their revelation settled into us, they turned once more toward the machine, and the structure awakened. Light rippled through the metal veins, and the chamber filled with a low, resonant hum that settled deep in my chest. The portal began to form again, slowly, controlled, its edges stable and deliberate. The beings watched with approval, their posture easing as the gateway stabilized. Before stepping toward it, the being turned back to me. Its voice entered my mind one last time, gentle but immense. This world has always been divided by illusions, which prevents us from obtaining knowledge. We forget that we are one, shaped by the same stars, warmed by the same sun. Conflict weakens this world. We were sent to discover unity. Images followed. Humans across centuries, fighting, building, loving, destroying, rebuilding again. Then something unexpected happened. The being extended his awareness outward, not to all of us, but specifically to me. The tomb responded. I felt it, unmistakably. A transfer, a recognition. The chamber, the machine, the impossible architecture beneath the desert. It anchored itself to my presence. This place was yours to find, he said, but never to reveal. I understood immediately what he meant. I nodded, my throat tight. I promise, I said aloud, though I knew he heard the intent more than the words. No one will ever come here again. Satisfied, the beings turned away. The portal flared brighter, filling the chamber with radiant motion. One by one, they stepped forward, their forms dissolving into light as they crossed the threshold. Then they were gone. The portal collapsed into silence. The machine dimmed. The vibration faded. We were left standing in the echo of something far larger than history, tasked not with explaining it, but with honoring it. Katie's eyes were wide, unfocused, as if she were afraid that language itself might shatter what we had just witnessed. Marcus stood perfectly still, his mouth slightly open, staring at the space where the portal had been, as though expecting it to reopen at any second. Eventually, we moved, not because we were ready, but because staying felt wrong, like lingering in a dream after waking. The ascent felt shorter than the descent, though no less strange. The tomb seemed to guide us upward now, its pathways revealing themselves without effort. The oppressive weight we'd felt earlier was gone, replaced by a gentle buoyancy, as if the place itself was letting us go. When we reached the ladder and climbed back toward the surface, the cool night air met us. We emerged into the desert beneath a sky so clear it felt unreal. Saqqara stretched out in every direction, quiet and eternal. The sand glimmered faintly under the starlight, untouched, almost looking at us like it knew what we experienced. The opening sealed itself behind us without sound, the ground settling back into perfect anonymity, as if the tomb had never existed at all. We stood shoulder to shoulder, gazing upward. The stars were overwhelming, thousands of them, sharp and alive, unfiltered by city lights or modern noise. I thought of the beings drifting somewhere among them now, traveling farther than any human vessel had ever gone, carrying knowledge meant for a queen who had been gone for 2,000 years. Katie broke the silence only to whisper a breathless laugh, shaking her head in disbelief. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, eyes still fixed on the sky, as if searching for motion between the constellations. We had touched something ancient and infinite, and it had trusted us enough to remain hidden. As the desert wind brushed past us and the stars watched in their quiet indifference, I knew none of us would ever look at the night sky the same way again. Somewhere out there, our new friends were traveling. And here, beneath the sand, Egypt kept their secret.